Preseason technicalities and Juan's in a different room. All right, good afternoon. My name is Mick Hoffman. I'm the executive director of the WIAA. I'm the guest and currently the pinch hitting host. So I know Juan wants to spend a little bit of time talking about the Mariners. For the WIAA, this is an incredibly exciting time for us. We got third weekend on football and volleyball and soccer and cross country, and weather's starting to change. It really feels like fall in the mornings and the evenings, and kind of that people still have that eternal hope early in the season. And so for us, it's extremely exciting to be back in the swing of things. I know today, hopefully you hang in there with us. Juan wants to talk a lot about accountability in schools. And we're going through a situation right now where our board has defined what some penalties could be for chronic issues. And I guess the thing that we're trying to make sure people keep focused on is, like anything, when you're trying to change behavior, you have to find out what motivates somebody to change. And for a lot of people, fortunately, a lot of our schools and our students, it's simply then just knowing expectations. Most students, we're very lucky in Washington. Most of our students are going to live up to expectations. They want to represent themselves and their family and their communities to the best of their abilities, and have people walk away respecting them and where they're from. And so, we spend about 95% of our time on about 5% of the action. And unfortunately, in today's world, that's kind of what gets the attention. And so, but at the same time, we have some great kids. For those of you who aren't familiar, if you go to our website, WIAA.com, and look up around our LEAP students, our leaders, we have hundreds of kids apply to be on there. We're only able to accept 8 a year currently in the structure. And it is incredible to sit down and listen to them. Our staff that works with them on a regular basis are continually coming back. And I'll tell you what, during COVID, that student voice actually changed several decisions that were left up to our board, that our board did have the authority and the guidance coming from staff, strictly from those kids. So If you get a chance and you want to do some trolling of the WI other than telling us how we don't know what we're doing, get on there and look at. There are some absolutely amazing young people in this state. So we're going to end up talking about some negative stuff today. As a governance agency, that's what we get to do. But we're really trying to be service balanced, and we have some phenomenal kids helping us. Juan, I did the filler as best I could.
You did outstanding, man. I hope you are doing well, and I am so sorry for the technical delays, but no, I did not want you to go on for 60 minutes by yourself. And Daniel and I have experienced that, and by ourselves, and we know the challenges that can be. So it's so good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, great to see you. I'm pretty sure Daniel would have muted me in about 30 more seconds. So this show was almost over before we got started.
Well, it definitely is started, and we are definitely going to start with it today. And we want to welcome everybody back. Good afternoon, and welcome to WIAA Primetime. I'm Juan Cotto. I am a Rainier Avenue Radio personality. Daniel Bellis, our producer, and of course, the executive director, Mick Hoffman of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And guess what? It's a brand new school year, 25-26. And the fields, the gyms, the tracks, the stadiums, and even in Juan and Sarah Cotto's case, the hospital rooms and the physical therapies. These are going on all across the state of Washington. We are alive again with the sights and sounds of high school sports. Today, we want to welcome everybody back who makes this experience possible, the student athletes who will give all their energy and effort to producing great experience for themselves, the parents who cheer from the stands, the coaches and athletic directors who shape character, the trainers, the referees who keep the game safe and fair, and the fans who bring the energy that make Friday nights and really every single day of the week exciting and electric. This is more than just a season opener at Rainier Avenue Radio. It's the start of another chapter in the story of teamwork, sportsmanship, and school pride. Dreams will be born, friendships will be forged, and lessons will be learned that last long after the final whistle and after Mick and I get our links correct. So buckle up. We're ready for another incredible year of WIAA Primetime. Mick, I joked with you a couple of weeks ago that we would be discussing what's going to happen if the Seattle Mariners make it to the World Series. What's going to be the impact on high school sports? And the Mariners suddenly, winning 13 out of 14 games, have moved to the top of the American League West. And boy, it has been exciting, and it's really interesting. It being the son or being the father of a high school senior, how the high schools really get into the Mariners playing well.
Yeah, I mean, one, everybody loves a winner, but when you got a team like the Mariners that have been loyal to Seattle and kind of riding the cusp of mediocrity, and are they really going to go for it? They pushed the ball in this year, and how incredibly exciting to be able to have a team that could potentially be playing for a world championship. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. I tip my cap to the leadership there of the Mariners for being willing to do it. And man, I'm a huge Josh Naylor fan. I love watching that guy play.
Like you said, everyone loves a winner, and it goes back to the days of 1979. I can't believe it was that long ago, Mick, when we used to sneak out of school, go downtown for the big parade. And of course, I had graduated by then, but Ian Furness and a number of our guys that I went to high school with, we remember being down there for the big parade down 4th Avenue, and how exciting those times were that the Sonics brought, and obviously the Seahawks of 2013, the Seattle Storm, and all the excitement that they've done with their championship runs. And obviously the Seattle Sounders as well, and winning the League's Cup this year, and how exciting it is to have another winner in the city of Seattle. We're going to start right off, Mick. How about that? I sent you the questions, and I know you and I have talked about this before, both of us being former coaches. And, it was an unfortunate situation that occurred last spring up at Roosevelt High School. And certainly, as you can probably imagine, being the parent of a current football player, being on select baseball and going to games, being a former high school football coach, and as much as I tried to sit way down the right field line by myself, parents would somehow seek out and come to find me and have conversations about a lot of the issues around the certain aspects of high school sports. And here I am, the Catholic school graduate, the Catholic school parent. And but I hear a lot of interesting conversations. Although, Mick, as you know, I coached at two high schools that really struggle in the sport of football. Highline High School, although for a while they had a nice little run going over there when they dropped down in classifications, which is something I had requested for quite some time. And then also the Franklin High School Quakers. And although they have had tremendous players that have come out of that school, their turnouts have been so small recently over the last 10 to 15 years. And we saw a situation that occurred up at Roosevelt High School, and the rhetoric and the versions of it, and obviously what people say about it is all a matter of conjecture at some points. It did go to, I believe it was mediation. I believe it still could be possibly being mediated. And obviously people were impacted, careers were impacted, and people were fined, as you know. The question becomes, as we've had this conversation, and I obviously want to, and we obviously have to, so people who will be watching this and they will sit here and tell me, oh, Juan and Mick, you guys are just two politicians and you guys just kind of answer around the questions. First of all, we try to ask as tough of questions as we can under the circumstances. So I respect the fact that there's still maybe some litigation going on. And I also understand the role that Mick Hoffman plays in terms of trying to work this with the WIAA. So we will, and the other thing is that Mick Hoffman, his predecessor, Mike Colbreeze, I tell you what, when you ask them a question, they give you the answer. So for a lot of parents who will poke me in the ribs, I'll poke you right back. Mick and Mike have not shied away from tough questions. But recent reporting notes and the sanctions from the WIAA related to the alleged recruiting at high school, administrative actions by the Seattle Public Schools, without speaking to any ongoing legal matters, what are the core principles the WIAA uses to define and deter recruiting violations?
Yeah, one, if you want the textbook answer, it's available on our website, WIAA.com, under resources in the handbook. One thing, so recruiting is essentially influencing students to decide to switch schools, right? When you are overtly or intentionally trying to get a student to switch schools. In the state of Washington, it's a little tricky. We're a choice state, right? By law, kids have a right to go to school where they want, as long as, if it's not their resident public school, as long as there's room in that school and they're accepted by the school, that's public or private. And so, we get challenged a lot legally, and full disclosure, we're still in the midst of appeals, and we haven't even gone to litigation on any of this stuff. So I do have to be a little bit careful. But globally on the topic, so we are often asked by judges how this aligns, and there's previous court decisions, national decisions, where around property rights and access to athletics. And it's not a property right to be able to do extracurricular. To get an education, it is. So none of our rules prevent a student from going to any school they want. It's just their varsity eligibility may not travel with them. So they're always available unless there's a significant discipline issue attached to it. Always eligible at the JV level or C squad level. So that's one thing and it's very different. Oregon, if you are not eligible, if you're not deemed varsity eligible, you don't get to play sub-varsity. And so Washington, we're a lot more liberal with those rules because for whatever reason, our rules are written that way. And fortunately they are, because of the benefit of participation. So that's one thing. The other thing is that people don't really always think about is when you have a new students coming into your program, there's somebody else in that spot. Right. You get 3 new girls basketball players in. There's 3 girls that maybe played there for 3 years, maybe played in the feeder program for 4 years. So for 7 years, they've been getting ready to be, the starter as a senior at Juan Cotto High School. And all of a sudden, 3 girls get recruited in and they're not playing. And again, we're talking high school sports. Our coaches shouldn't be getting bonuses for winning. Heck, we could run a quiz right now of the viewers of all the state champions of all levels of all sports last year, let alone 2 years ago. And I would venture to guess it's under 15% accurate by the time you go through all the sports. So that's something that people forget, is that a new student displaces somebody. Now, if they just move in, they move in, and it's competition. So that's why those rules are written. The other part is competitive equity. In 1905, the WIAA started. A group of schools are playing hoops against each other from one town to the next, and the adults are jumping in. They're like, hey, that's not fair. Well, who's in charge of the rules? Well, we got to have somebody in charge of the rules. Well, let's start a group, volunteer group, to enforce the rules. Here we are, 2026, right? We're not volunteers by any means, but we're still enforcing the rules. And again, the membership makes these rules. That's the other thing people don't realize. I don't make the rules. Our staff doesn't make the rules. Our board has very little rulemaking authority. The membership votes, proposes and votes on the rules. So we are essentially enforcing what the membership has asked.
Now, you bring up just something very interesting, and this is something you've been as consistent as the sun has been showing this summer. And what a beautiful summer we've had here. But you have been as consistent with that answer, Mick. You say that the rules are made by the committees. And I go and I will be sitting in my seat watching my son play baseball, and people will come up to me and they will say, these rules need to change. And that why are these private schools playing against these public schools? And your son is at a school that has a boundary of 50 miles, and we're just a little neighborhood group. Was that something that was anticipated way back in the day? And do the principles of 1905 still fit? And if they don't, what can a parent or what can someone do to get to someone who is a part of that rules committee and say, hey, look, we need to look at this?
Yeah. So the rules, so any five schools that are members can propose a rule. So you get 5 Seattle public schools could write the rule change. The other 4 sign off, and it goes up for vote. We have 290 some high schools, depending on, we lose 1 or 2 small ones every year. So 5 of them, and then the way it takes a 60% vote. There's 35 high school voters in the state, 18 middle school, and it's all done proportionally. I think House of Reps. So Seattle, for example, is in District 2, and so they proportionally, I don't know exactly, they have 6 or 7 of the 35 votes, whatever it is. So it takes 60%. So, the school in northeastern Washington, Cusick, up there above Spokane, they have representatives no different than, Chihuahua down there in the southeast and everyone else. So they make the rules. And our job is to help those 5 schools that want to put forward an amendment to understand how that rule intersects with other parts of the handbook. We have rules come forward for vote all the time that we disagree with, but it's up to the membership. They discuss it for a year, their people vote, and then we go in and implement it and enforce it from there. So it's a very democratic process. So if people don't like the rules, what we typically hear is a small segment somewhere, a rule's not working for them, but for the greater good. And think about, our society in whole. That's pretty much true of any rules and laws that we see. So in this case, majority rules throughout the state. And the other thing, Juan, that a lot of people don't understand is a student in middle school, when they go to 9th grade, they can choose any school they want for 9th grade. And that's where their athletic eligibility lies, right? And so if it could be public, private, doesn't matter. But that's now basically their home school for eligibility. Transferring from there. Now, they still can't be recruited there, right? You still can't go out and recruit every kid. You still can't follow your AAU coach to a different school and do that. But short of athletic purpose or blatant recruiting, a 9th grader gets to choose where they go to school. They can play there all 4 years. Doesn't matter if they live in that community or not.
Let's talk. Can we talk about that just for a second? I just want to follow up on that point and what constitutes recruiting, and is that someone who is a coach or an administrator or someone at a particular school? Is it someone who's drawing a salary? Is someone associated with the program, or can a parent can a parent at a little league game say, hey, it's a good idea for you to go to this school. You need to go to Juan Cotto High School. You'd fit in well there, and and if it's a private school, we can see if we can get some of the tuition paid for. I mean, do people actually do that, or what actually constitutes what would be recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's a good chance that, yes, that happens. The rule is really intended for people connected to the school. So if they're talking to students, the students recruiting students, parents, that's pretty difficult at times to prove. Essentially, what needs to happen is if a student is showing interest in going to a different school, then the best thing they can do is contact the registrar like they would as if they weren't an athlete. So how would a non-athlete enter that school? And what we tell schools is, hey, if you're a coach, don't talk to that kid until they're registered at your school. Because when you start talking to the kid and you start talking about your program, now you're doing some undue influence. They got questions about your softball team or your volleyball team. Send them to the AD, the athletic director, the administrator, who will represent the school. Send them to the principal, send them to the registrar about getting registered, and off they go. So that's the best way. Booster clubs, yeah, they're connected to your school. They're responsible for that. Volunteer coaches, yep, there's a formal relationship to that school. So if it's somebody that the school's approved to basically represent them in some way, parents, right, not so much. So
he is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities. And I want to underline Activities Association, and sports fall under activities. It's not the other way around. That's why the acronym is the way it is. And he comes with us on Tuesdays, and we sit here and we discuss these issues. And a lot of parents reached out to me this summer, and I saw a lot of folks. And Mick Hoffman is someone who answers the questions thoroughly, which we appreciate on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick, 2 years ago here in the city of Seattle, Aaron Hart, who was the high school coach up at, I believe, Lincoln High School, and my memory, I think, serves me correctly. And he felt that, something, they had some success. They said they had a little neighborhood team of kids that had played together for a while, and they came out had built the program up after Lincoln was reestablished as a high school up in North Seattle. And they won the middle section of the Metro League. And Aaron Hart basically said, look, I don't want to go up and coach against the O'Days and the Eastside Catholics and some of these schools. I'm going to step down from my position. And he was on a radio program. I believe there was a local broadcast personality whose I think son maybe played at one of those schools. And just from the tone of the questioning, felt like Aaron was running away from his responsibility of being a coach. And I was listening to that in preparation for some conversation about this, and I think that there is the perspective, and I wanted to give Coach Hart a little bit of credit, because I don't think that he felt that it was an equitable situation with the private schools. And I ask you this, and once again, I'll be very transparent about it. I'm a private school parent. My son attends O'Day High School. He's on the football team. It does not play very much. We went to a game of one of his select baseball teammates last year, and he sat there, and it was almost like the Russians after losing to the United States in the hockey game, and they were just looking at the USA celebrate, remembering what it was like. And he was just like, something, if I could be up here, I could be playing. And he said, Dad, I should come up here. And I said, no, that's not an option for you. You're not there to play football. If you want to play football, you're going to have to get in the program and do a little bit better. But the bottom line issue is that there is a feeling, I think, and it is starting to grow, especially in this NIL reality and some of the things that are going on at the college level, that these private schools have a little bit of an advantage over the public schools.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've had complaints come in about public schools recruiting from private schools around the ability to access Running Start, right? So that's a new one. And so the typical story has been, yes, private schools have an advantage. I mean, think about an urban area like Seattle, 50-mile radius. That's pretty wide. Now, one of the things we do is we keep track of championships, public-private, right? And the percents. And Mike did this before I got here. We've continued it. Just reminded me, I just had somebody ask for that. Thank you. Wrote myself on a note on my reminder here. But proportionally, private schools in this state win equivalent amount of state championships as the percent of private schools. So we used to be about 17% private independent schools, and they won about 17% of the state championships year in, year out. So it was equivalent to the number of schools, or proportional. As the number of private schools has risen up to as high as 20% during COVID, coming out of COVID, they won about 20%. Now, I will say, when you analyze the data, there are certain sports at certain levels that private schools do a much higher percent. Predominantly in track and girls basketball, mostly at some of the lower levels. At the upper levels, the larger schools, the 2As, 3As, 4As, we don't see it nearly as much. And so they actually win a far less proportionally state championships up there based on the data we've collected. Now, Day wins state championship, everybody pays attention to that. Gonzaga Prep makes a good run of basketball, everybody pays attention to that. Like, we get it, but if you go strictly by numbers year in, year out, it's proportional across the from 1B up, but there's definitely areas where there are more championships won. I mean, sometimes 60% at some. So we have some schools looking at that. There's some possible amendments. So again, those schools impacted, look at that, and we help them with the wording, so to make sure they understand, again, other rules that will be impacted, so they don't have an unintended outcome if they're successful passing it. So
we have a 100% break policy here at Rainier Avenue Radio. So we are going to take 3 minutes so you can hear from some of our folks in the community who share the responsibility of highlighting themselves to bring you this programming. So Daniel, take it away, and we will be back on 3 minutes on your community radio station, Rainier.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Are you in need of new or gently used clothing? Hope's Community Closet is here to help. We offer a wide range of clothing for men, women, youth, children, and infants. Join us on the fourth Saturday of each month from 12:30 to 4 at the Silent Task Force. We're giving clothing with care, community with heart. Lovely Ladies Lemonade for sale, and shop to the sound of old school soul. Any questions? Contact Alicia Kennedy, Executive Director of Women United, at 206-316-7601. 206-316-7601. Come and find the perfect outfit for you and your family. We look forward to seeing you there.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your community connection to business success. Tune in weekly to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Listen and learn from local and national guest speakers, providing resources and knowledge for the everyday business owner. Women Empowerment Talk Radio, weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
1, 2, get down!
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is what you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Stay safe in the heat this summer. On hot days, more people have serious health issues like heat stroke, heart problems, and kidney failure. People who are pregnant, older adults, children, and outdoor workers are more at risk. Certain medications and health conditions like diabetes can make it harder to cope with. Check with your healthcare provider. Stay cool, drink plenty of water, and take breaks from the heat, especially if you work outdoors. This is a message from Public Health, Seattle, King County.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio,
your community radio station.
Good afternoon. Happy September. Happy fall. The first week of fall in the Pacific Northwest and in Seattle. And that means your community radio station is back. And we have already covered 2 spirited football games here on Rainier Avenue Radio. And I believe Daniel will flash up who we have going this weekend. But Rainier Avenue Radio certainly is back, and we were excited about it. It was so much, and with some of the broadcasts that we're doing, some of the performances that we're seeing, it's always exciting when we get the kids back in school. And for me, one of the most important and most exciting things is I get to talk to Mick Hoffman again, my good buddy, and over there in Renton, keeping tabs. And tell us a little about your summer, Mick. How was it? You get a chance to spend time with your beautiful family and get to see your children and grandchildren.
Yeah, we got a couple twin boys that popped out here in November, so we got to spend some time with them and their little sister. And we spent a little time a week down Central Oregon, and rest of the time just kind of milling around Washington. So it was a good summer. Like I said, the weather is phenomenal. I couldn't beat it. It was pretty quiet. So I travel so much during the year around the state. It's nice just to put it in neutral for a while in the summer.
I do not joke with you. I was at a select baseball game, and we were having conversations with some parents about sports and activities. And the person said, "You're a politician, and then Mick Hoffman, he's also a politician." And we are community leaders, ma'am. I'm sorry, I don't run from it. I try to balance it. And Mick, if you I don't know if you follow us on what's going on the last couple of weeks on Rainier Avenue Radio and this community election connection. We do have an election coming up here in the city of Seattle, and we encourage everybody to vote. And we have been politicking. We have been politicking at the Columbia City Theater. If you were there last week, you saw Sarah Nelson take on Dion Foster, and that is a heated race for the the District 9 at-large city council seat. That's a citywide election, and let me tell you something. Those two ladies, they brought it, and I commend both of them for, number one, the courage to run, and number two, just for the vision and leadership in their answers. And obviously anyone who puts themselves out there as a citizen, we appreciate the courage for them doing that. We also had the District 2 race with Eddie Lynn, who was taking on Adonis Duckworth, who was a golfer at O'Day, by the way, an extremely good golfer and played college golf. But he decided to go ahead and tee it up, and he is now running for the Seattle City Council. Bless him, and see if he can make a par, a birdie or a bogey. And a lot of times, a lot of people feel that the Seattle City Council makes a lot of bogeys, so he's going to try to change that. And then, of course, we had the mayor's race, and we had former University of Washington Husky linebacker Bruce Harrell, who is now the mayor. And I know Tony's going to get on me for pronouncing Mayor Harrell's name wrong, but it's just one of those things that I do. And he is taking on Katie Wilson, no relation to Russell Wilson. And they had a really dynamic exchange of ideas and certainly showed themselves as community leaders. So the Community Election Connection, we are at your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world. Mick, you and I talked about this before, and we've seen this resurrection up in Anacortes. They have turned what was a struggling program recently. I mean, they didn't have turnout. They didn't have kids. They didn't have numbers. Now they have turned into a perennial state power program. And my hats off to them. We really like to see when schools do that. They are a 2A program, and they've really experienced some success. There are several Seattle programs, including the ones that I coached at. But and it's really interesting to me, this one, Garfield. Garfield, unfortunately, is going to have to forfeit some games. They have a much smaller roster than they have in prior years. Something happened, and their coach, Coach Witherspoon, either decided to leave the program, or he didn't want to re-up to when he was asked to reapply for the position. I never did understand exactly what happened there, but he decided to step away, and it seems like that program is now struggling a little bit, and their numbers are down, and to a point where they have to forfeit some games. Franklin usually has about 25 people out there, and that's what they have right now. What does the WIAA track on roster sizes, injury, and participation, and how might that data inform the classification, scheduling, or safety policies?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty robust classification system now. Membership voted. I was actually on that committee as a board member years ago, where we started to factor in socioeconomics. And it's not that a student growing up in poverty isn't as talented. It's just in general, especially a sport like football that takes big numbers. When you have families that are dealing with all kinds of external challenges, getting to football and building a program from that 6th, 7th, 8th grade all the way through, or even keeping a kid in for 4 years. When I taught at Fort Vancouver High School, we get some studs walking the door as 9th graders. And because of life, they were having to move by the time they were sophomores with other family or, neighbors, or go to work and couldn't make practice. So we decided to put a factor in there. So that's one way when we're counting numbers, that numbers are adjusted. And we're reviewing if we still need to do that. Because there's also an appeal process that up until about 7-8 years ago, you go in and appeal, and it was thank you very much for coming, and you're staying where you're at. But we've had our board and our district directors have really dug into this with this new philosophy. And we have students all over the place. And again, I'll use Fort Vancouver as an example. Some years, their numbers, pure numbers, would put them almost at a 4A school, and they're playing in a 1A league. And I was just in that district meeting, the District 4 meeting, as they were talking about making changes with the socioeconomic factor. And they said, hey, Fort Vancouver is at the 1A league. They're right where they should be. They're not dominating. They're competitive. They might even win a game or two a year, but it's good games. And the other thing they pointed out is Fort Vancouver is a very different community than La Center, Washington. So it's also allowing our kids, when we talk about education-based athletics, neither one of those teams are going to play for a state championship. But when you combine those two communities and dynamics around sports and the emotion, and they learn to compete and respect each other, that's the biggest win they're going to get all year. So there's a process to take into impact, the effect of uncontrollable factors in the school. There's also a chance for appeals to try to get to competitive equity. And we don't have the data. I mean, honestly, I wish we did. We probably could do it through AI, but I'd love to know the number of running clock games we've had in the last 3 years as opposed to the previous 10 around competitive equity. So it's a major focus of our membership to give a kid a chance every Thursday night to compete. So
let me ask you this question with the emphasis, it seems, for a lot of parents, and obviously, I have a lot of conversations in select baseball, and Mick, nobody shouldn't say never, right? I guess there are a couple of kids out there that are playing baseball for fun. And I've told Clemente, if the game stops becoming fun, I want you out of it immediately. So there's other things you can do that are more important to your time, and we can do other things as a family. And I'm not the parent that considers select baseball a business trip or a vacation. If there's a business trip, I'd like to have him learn about coding. If we're going to go learn something, I want it to be lasting. I love the sport, and it would play tremendous impact in my life, and I got to take it as far as I could go. But I've told him that there's no pressure on you, and I think that that's genuine. And I think just judging from our relationship, and the fact that he still speaks to me, I believe that that's true. I believe that he plays the game because he enjoys it. And if there's some opportunities that come along with that, that's great. But it seems that a lot of these parents we speak with during the summer, they're there because they think their kid is going to play at the next level. And whatever the next level is determined in their mind, whether that is the potential to play in the major leagues, in the minor leagues, Division I, Division II, Division III, they think their kid is going to play at the next level. And I am wondering, just from that aspect of it, parents start to make business decisions. This school is better than that school. And I'm just wondering if you could describe, or if it could be discussed, and I understand that it's a committee that makes this decision, what would a modernized transfer eligibility framework look like? Are we starting to move to that level? We've got to take a look at this. You shouldn't be driving from Olympia to downtown Seattle to play football. And that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering, are we starting to look at that, or is there a way that we can examine what that type of framework would look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to be able to enforce something like that, you'd have to be able to verify residence of every single kid. And right now, we do that through our schools. But I will tell you, the WIAA, with 13 staff members and 120 plus state events to run, we're not going out verifying residents. That's up for the schools to do, who deem it necessary. So to be able to track that, right now, our schools, with the turnover we have in ADs, they're having a hard time just making sure all their kids are eligible under the current rules. So adding something like that. So what we've tried to do, though, with this new transfer window is allow students to switch schools to kind of align with school choice. That really came from pressure of the Washington legislators. That's where they wanted this to go. So we said, give us a year, and our membership responded. I'm so happy with our membership. I mean, our membership gets it. They may not always agree. They're competitive. They want to win. Sometimes, like all of us, we're stubborn, but they get it. And they understand that education-based athletics is so valuable for our kids. The best intervention program in any school to keep kids connected to their education, that they're going to do whatever they have to do to protect it and give kids a great opportunity. So yeah, what would that look like? I mean, there's places all around the country trying to do it. And honestly, most of them are losing total control. I mean, Florida right now, you can play football at one school, basketball at a second school, baseball at a third school, while you're attending a fourth school and never have to move. Now think about that.
Scott Ligo sent me a article recently. I think it was last year, and he and I still the former Garfield High School coach, and he's got a number of projects going on around about teaching or working with parents who are looking for their kids to go to college and so forth. But he sent me an article down in California. There are kids, like you said, they're playing football at a school in the fall, and then they're transferring to go back to their other school in the winter. What's going on with that? Why are we allowing that to happen?
Well, I mean, there's one thing, when the legislators get involved, they're not bad people, but they don't understand the nuances and there's a lot of unintended outcomes. And I think when you start legislating things, we try not to get too involved at the local level ourselves, because as soon as we start doing that from Renton, there's things going on in a small B league that we don't understand and can't do. So I think people want to get elected. They want to give people what they want. No one wants to be told no. That's probably the longest COVID effect that we have, is no one wants to be told no. And it's hard to be a person with responsibility of authority right now. And yeah, you call me a politician, because I am a politician. I hate to admit it, but I'm trying to represent a statewide on topics that are very divisive.
You know something, if you're doing it with integrity, Mick, there's no shame in it. And like I said, The only difference between me and a politician is that politicians win elections. I'm a statesman, and I would throw you in that category. Mick, we're going to do another show here coming up, and I'm going to make a note of it on the high school athletic director. There was a time, Mick, where I thought, geez, I would like to go that athletics route, and maybe I'll go ahead and be an athletic director at a high school. I don't know who would want that job. And you talk about a politician, and you talk about all the things that are entailed in being a high school athletic director. And like you said, a number of them are stepping out of that position. I don't know why anybody would want to do it. That is the most difficult position. My good friend up at Nathan Hale, whose name's escaping me right now, Darby Haskins, thank you. He says, Juan, it's the 3 Bs, buses, budgets, and basketball. I just constantly going through that, and we'll have a conversation about it. But what can we do to keep our athletic directors from going from jumping and getting out of it? What can we do, just in a nutshell, to make their lives easier?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I was at a small school game this last Friday on a town near the coast, and I was talking to an AD, and he's like, man, Mick, I'm telling you, 30 years law enforcement. He was a street cop, detective, whole thing. He said, this is year 4 of being an AD. I've done more work in 4 years as an AD than 30 years as a cop. He goes, I don't have shift worked on this. He goes, I'm working 6 days a week, not a 3-day shift and then 6 days off. He goes, the shift work is over. He said, it's full-time, year-round. And so what are we doing? Well, one, we're trying to create some systems. We've tried to bring some tools and technology to them, that they can enter their scores and schedules one place and populate everything they need, whether it's streaming, ticketing, websites, all that kind of stuff. So we've tried to do some things centrally that we could deploy out to the field to simplify their lives a little bit. I mean, it's weird calling technology simplification, but it does help. Trying to automate it. The other piece is Washington has a phenomenal athletic directors association. I would put it up against anything in the country, and it is not ours. It is an independent group, the Washington, WASA, Washington's Secondary Schools Athletic Administrators Association, and it's made up of ADs around the state. They have a phenomenal mentoring program that they have them deployed throughout the state. They connect with all first-year ADs and then try to work with second-year ADs with ongoing education and support. So there's a lot in this state. There's a group, Women of Washington. So there's another group, Legends Hotel and Casino, Yakima Nation, provides $25,000 a year specifically for the Women of Washington. And they are specifically focusing on supporting young female and veteran female ADs, and then also going out and trying to identify women in the coaching field that would be ADs. And then the third thing we're doing, and this is one of our highlights in our office, is Legends Hotel and Casino originally started with us on a $25,000 grant for our BIPOC ADs. And so we have a committee, Seattle guy, Albertus Brooks Jr., got a kid at O'Day right now. AJ led, him and I and Johnny Lee out of Silas High School met, and we said, what can we do to support our ADs? And they said, well, we could run with this. So my job was to get the money. Their job was to create the programming. And Amber, now Plummer, who's at Federal Way, is leading that. And they have a host of athletic directors and providing scholarships for education. They have basically a support group like all ADs need. They get together for a retreat in the summer, looking specifically at their needs as a community, and they meet throughout the year. So there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in Washington going on to wrap around ADs, and yet we're still losing them. It's a tough job. I mean, we'd start off on the Roosevelt conversation and tell that lady who poked you in the ribs, I'm not a total politician. So if I was a good politician, I'd avoid this comment. But, what we're finding is the AD structure is really critical in Seattle. Our Seattle ADs have very little time and get a small stipend to run and what's expected of an AD. So that's one of the things we know we're working with Seattle schools on is like, what's the support structure? Look, we can't price them out of the market to offer athletics through the schools, but at the same time, you need some leadership in that area, and they have good people. They need to provide the time, the resources for the good people to do the good work, and they're going to be fine long term if we continue down that path.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. He is not running for public office, so he will not be on any of our shows for the Community Election Connection. However, he will be here with us on Tuesdays at 3:00 to discuss the issues going on in high school sports on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. World, WIAA, Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And this is our show, WIAA Primetime. Mick, some programs in dense urban areas, and it's really, really interesting. I mean, I think I was thinking just about where I am sitting here in the Leschi neighborhood. And I mean, within 5 miles of this humble little place where Sarah and I live, within 5 miles, if you drew a circle, and that would also go all the way include Bellevue. I mean, I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, there are about 8 high schools that come to mind within 5 miles of where I am sitting right now. You have dense urban areas. You have suburban areas such as Bellevue, such as Renton, such as Kirkland and Redmond and the schools over there. Then you have rural schools, and obviously access to transportation and all these different alternatives that go on in the high school. And to be honest with you, Mick, I finally got to go down to Rainier Beach High School. It was for a celebration of life, unfortunately, for Dave Belmonte, the longtime Metro League basketball coach, who I remember as a kid coaching at Franklin and spent 40 years coaching in the Seattle Public Schools, and was on the staff of Mike Bethay at Rainier Beach High School the last several years and making an impact, doing what he loves, coaching kids. And my question to you is this, with established private schools thriving and using marketing efforts and the different things that are going on in all 3 of those levels, urban, suburban, and rural, what equity levels, funding models, and shared services can we think about to help bolster the equity for our athletics in schools?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to that classification process with socioeconomics, where you have areas of high mobility, essentially trying to make some type of adjustment to, it's not one size doesn't fit all model. I'll tell you, some of our rural schools, we had a school come in and appeal a couple years ago, and the coach of the freshman team rode a bus 1 hour one way for a combined practice every day and did not get paid. Think about that. 2-hour round trip bus ride for this was at the middle school. So they're appealing the high school, but explaining their middle school feeder programs. An hour bus ride each way, which means those kids were riding 2 hours each day to go to a middle school practice. So wrap your mind around that. So we know there are some significant challenges. Just because a school has 1,500 kids here or 1,500 kids there, they're very different. So that's what we have a standing committee, our classification committee, that's looking at how do we do those factors, and then the appeals. And we might have 50 schools come in and appeal based on their unique needs. And our board and our district directors have said, we'll put aside the time and listen to it. This is the right thing to do for kids. Like, that impacts them for 4 years. So I guess that's probably the best example I can give you is, then collecting data from their teams. The other thing in Washington, we don't mandate what league they're in or who they schedule. They just got to be a member of a league. But if they say, you know what, we know we don't have a chance to win a state championship, we're not postseason, we want a great experience for our volleyball team during the year, they can go schedule an independent schedule. They can work out a deal to how to get possibility of postseason access. But if they're willing to play down, so we have schools do that all the time. If they're not granted an appeal, they'll go play at a lower level it demonstrates, like the Fort Vancouver example, after 6 years, like, yeah, they're not going to go dominate 1A like everybody thought. 1A say, please make them part of our league. The board then says, you know what? You got it. Like, this isn't, you're not going down there to take something from those smaller schools. You're just going down there to give your kids a chance to compete day in, day out. So, I think I'm really proud of that work. That's been, over a decade of us getting to this point, and we're starting to see those results. And again, we track the appeal ones and the opt-downs and the opt-ups, how much they win. And they are winning. I mean, it's a very, very small percent of wins compared to the number of teams. So unlike the public-private, it is not proportional. Teams going down are not dominating.
Mick, I'm going to ask a long question. We have 90 seconds. Okay. We have 90 seconds. I'm going to give you this, coach transitions. Obviously we saw a couple of weeks ago, Monty Kohler won the 300, and I can't remember what the number was, game of his career. And he's the all-time state leading coach. And I joke with Monty all the time. It's not the wins, Mick. It's not the wins. I'm not impressed with the wins. I've won high school football games. I'm impressed with the 40 years.
Yeah,
and it's amazing that a kid in 1985 who went to O'Day High School and played for Monty Kohler, they can come back for 40 years later and he's still there as the high school football coach. If you played high school football at Highline High School in 2010, you now have had 5 coaches since Juan Cotto was your coach. And I'm just wondering what we can do. Even if you were at Franklin, you played for me. There have been 3 coaches since I was your coach. What can the WIAA do to help build program continuity? Because that is one thing where the private schools seem to have an advantage.
Yeah, I would say, one, knowing who you're hiring and recruiting. So in Vancouver, what we did is we quit hiring the recycled coaches at our tough schools that were just trying to get back to another program they could win at. We started hiring young alumni who we built into head coaches through a mentoring program. And we put a lot of people, we bring back veteran coaches who didn't want to be head coaches, but to mentor. And we built our own to try to build that longevity. And some of those coaches, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think what we have to be able to do at the WI is to provide model programs, like collect best practices and be a resource for them, and then also not give up on trying to find a way to classify our schools where at least they got a chance. So somebody putting in all that time feels like there's a benefit, a trade-off for that time. So it's tough. It's not an easy answer.
When you are faced with tough decisions and you are looking for people to make those decisions using all the information available and all the staff available, that you should not be called a politician. You should be called a leader. And Mick Hoffman, I appreciate you always coming on and being a leader with us on WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Please continue to listen. We will fill you in on all the politics going on in 2025 as we head towards the general election in November. But most importantly, if you want to follow high school athletics and activities and the conversations around those, please dial in on Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We're so glad we are back, and we will see you again soon on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.